right, welcome everyone. We're Semblance of Sanity. I'm Caleb.
I'm Jacob.
And we're here for podcast number 32. Wow, there's been so many of these.
I know.
And guys, thank you so much for watching these. We've got to give a special shout out, first of all, to one of our VIP patrons.
Yes.
Chaos on the Discord. You're fantastic, dude. Thank you so much for the support. This guy's one of our original 5 VIP patrons, OG way back in the day. Thank you very much for your support. It means a lot.
Yeah.
For this podcast, we're doing something that we're really excited about.
Yes. Yeah. We've wanted to talk about this particular show a bit more in depth for a long time. So for this one, we are doing
the top 10 episode count for Avatar: The Last Airbender.
Yes.
In particular, if we wanted to do a full in-depth review of the show, we would be, doing a 5-hour video. Or more. Yeah, this show is our number one show as far as, consistent rewatchability and just overall value to us internally. It's a fantastic show. If you haven't watched it yet, highly recommend it. There are going to be some mild spoilers to more extreme spoilers.
But if you haven't watched Airbender yet, what are you doing?
What are you doing with your life?
Yeah, you need to see this show.
So we're going to be talking about this in terms of kind of going a little bit in depth into individual episodes that really make the show go from being a good show to one of the greatest shows.
And that was one of the things that was craziest about when we were compiling this list. There were so many great episodes, and we're like, we can't put all of these in here. So
we put in some honorable mentions at the end so that you can kind of get an idea that it was really hard to compile this list down to 10.
We didn't forget about, all those other awesome episodes.
Right. And these are going to be in chronological order as released, not necessarily in order of our value.
Exactly.
Of which one we like the most.
Because that's like choosing between children.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, number 1, we have the Southern Air Temple. It's Book 1, Episode 3. And yes, guys, we've watched this show so many times, we actually know the episode
names and all that.
The numbers and everything like that. But this episode in particular, Jacob, you and I kind of came to this understanding together that this was the episode that upgraded Avatar from being more than just a kids show.
Right. And even the first 2 episodes were really good. This is where you know that, okay, this is a gem. This is something special. Yeah. And everything they did with say Zuko, taking the antagonist and making you root for them on episode 3.
Right. That's incredible. Especially when they were introduced as basically a moody, angsty teenager with a lot of yelling issues and stuff.
Yep.
In particular, this episode also goes in depth into the world building in a very clever way that's consumable in an easy way for kids, but also has some really intense, dark things in it for the adults as well. Yes. Dealing with things like genocide, basically loss of family, the whole idea of coming back to the place of your youth and innocence and finding that it's been ruined by the real world, essentially. There's a whole lot of stuff in there, and that's not even touching all the amazing things that happen with Zuko. Highlight moment especially is that panning shot of Zuko's scar as it, so you remember the last time you dueled a master, and it pans over to his scar and he goes, I will never forget. It's shoot, the foreshadowing and the
and the introduction of an antagonist for the antagonist.
Yeah.
Even though Zhao wasn't the best character, he fit in the story so well.
Yeah. Excellent episode. And next one here, this one's a gem in and of
obvious,
itself.
Choice.
This is up there in top 5 or top 3 greatest Avatar episodes of all time.
This is the obvious one that's just it has to be on this list, and if it wasn't, it'd be you guys are crazy. The Storm.
Yeah. So The Storm in particular, episode 12. One of the episodes that I would say was segmented between some of the weakest episodes of Avatar and before it, and some of the best episodes of Avatar after it. This episode does something very, I would say, gutsy for a kids show. The action is very much non-existent in this episode. It goes in depth into our 2 main characters, Aang and Zuko, and delves into a parallel style flashback storytelling format. And it's done in such a way that is clever exposition that makes sense to bring up in this context. The way they delve into Aang's fear, contrasted by Zuko's, shame, but not really shame.
Like, this is the episode, because, like, okay, Southern Air Temple, right? Yeah. That was the one where they basically tantalized us and promised that they were going to do all this great stuff, not just with the main characters, but with the antagonist as well, right? Yeah. And this is the episode where it's like, oh yeah, this is where we deliver.
Yeah.
Like this is one of those parts where, like, after this, when I first watched it, I was like, I kind of don't really care about Aang, Katara, and Sokka. Like, I love them, but Zuko, let's get more Zuko. Like, the way they made the parallels between the main character and the antagonist, and the way they made it so that it's like, you know, more importantly, the Avatar gives Zuko hope, you know?
Right.
And we're talking about that with the fishermen and everything. Like, that...
This was character writing at its finest.
So good.
In so much as that the writing probably specifically for character depth, not character development. They do good character development writing later. Was probably never matched again in the show after this episode, because when you got into one of the tenets on each side that would make that character who they were, they would go and reflect that and show why they're proper protagonists and antagonists for each other. And the episode ends basically with Aang having this moment of... Oh, wait, sorry. That's the next episode. Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry, I know what I was talking about there. But, probably one of our favorite ones. But with that being said, let's get into the next episode.
The next one, which
ties in perfectly for the Blue Spirit.
Yeah.
This episode is probably... This episode was probably put in here in particular because of the flashback that was done between Aang and Zuko. And Aang and Zuko are the main characters in this one, but surprisingly, so is Zhao.
Right.
Now, here's the thing that's crazy here. They introduce the Blue Spirit and, this whole third party kind of thing with the Blue Spirit. Won't, give away anything exactly here, but the way this episode is just a nonstop action kind of tense thriller from start to finish,
while at the same time building on all the awesome character stuff that was introduced in the previous episode. Like, that is just amazing. Like the Solstice one, that's like the two-parter of season 1, but really like it's the Storm and the Blue Spirit.
It's the Storm and the Blue Spirit, If we had to choose 2 episodes from book 1 to rewatch over and over again, it would be these 2 episodes.
In conjunction with each other. Like, going from one into the other. It's just...
Right there. In particular, there's a lot of plot, kind of concurrent things that go across as well that make sense as to why this episode needed to happen. Also has some of the most genius comedy with Momo in particular. I would say that almost every episode we bring up except the Southern Air Temple was like god tier in terms of humor as well, which is not really a coincidence here. But sorry. Southern Air Temple and Zuko alone. There's going to be no humor in that one.
Surprised that one's also on the list, right?
right. But the Blue Spirit was the first episode I was introduced to in Avatar.
That's right.
And it really hit me right here on rewatching it in the context of the story as a whole.
Yeah, really when I first watched it, Caleb introduced me to like the first couple episodes. I'm like, okay, this is a cool show. Then that night, I went and watched it, and I watched up through the Blue Spirit. And once I finished the Blue Spirit, I'm like, I need to be done for tonight. That was so good. I need to just have that be the last thing in my mind.
Right.
It was
fantastic stuff.
Yeah.
And we're going to skip ahead here for our next one. Number 4 is the Siege of the North Part 2, is the finale episode of Book 1. In particular, where with finales and these, we're just doing the parts individually.
Exactly.
So for this one, you have kicking it off with Ko, the face stealer, which is one of the creepiest, most creative things Avatar has ever done for world building.
And somehow they let that slide on like Nickelodeon
with like a 7+ TVY7 rating and stuff, with a person that basically rips your face off and takes it into themselves if you show any emotion. And the way the sound design is set up, the camera angles, so to speak, it's a classic horror thing for kids. Right. But I remember showing this to some people who had young ones and stuff, and the 10-year-old's just sitting there like,
Yeah.
just sinking into his chair, just like, oh my gosh, just completely engrossed in it.
Yep.
He understands what's going on, even though it's his spirit mysticism and stuff like that, but it was really good.
They did so much for like the mythos of Airbender and the world in this
finale,
episode, in this finale, in so many amazing ways. And because they sold it so well with things like Ko and all that, we were able to buy into it. Whereas if they just randomly started pulling these things out of their hat that say hadn't been hinted to previously and all that stuff, it might have felt a bit jarring and like, why are we going here?
Right. You had Tui and La, the Ocean and Moon spirits, which were done exceptionally well. You had a lot of character arcs coming to a climax here that segued perfectly into the arcs they would start in Book 2.
Right.
Rest in peace, Zhao, man. That ending for him was fantastic.
Oh, yeah.
You had Aang's titular moment of saving the Northern Water Tribe, which was just terrifying in its own right as well. You had also Iroh being an absolute badass this episode in a way that you almost had been like dying to see for like the entire book.
But at the same time, you like, it's almost terrifying because you're like, no, you're the nice old like uncle.
And then suddenly he's screaming at Zhao, whatever you do to that spirit, I'll unleash on you tenfold. Let it go now.
And you're like, I do not want Iroh to, like, the wise man fears a calm man's anger.
Right. And also all the side characters had really, and at this point I would say generally, even though Katara and Sokka are main characters, they're kind of main side characters still.
Yeah.
They get some really cool character moments as well. Katara utilizing her water bending that shows she is a true master at this point. Easily defeating Zuko, twice essentially.
Right.
You had a whole lot of things that came to a head, but the finale was a springboard for probably the greatest book in Avatar, Book 2.
Yeah.
And the way they ended that cliffhanger there, you're like, I have this really uneasy feeling because something tells me that the show has upgraded itself towards a little bit less of a kid happy-go-lucky theme.
Right.
And that works perfectly going into the next episode we want to talk about here, which is Zuko
alone. Yeah.
So this episode is done in such an odd way. You have a sundering between Iroh and Zuko that forces essentially an episode of this nature to be like there.
And this episode is so good. Like, don't take our word for it.
Yes.
The creators remade this episode in the sequel series, Legend of Korra, because they knew this episode was just gold, and they wanted to, do that again.
Yeah, in terms of character depth, this is the closest thing to the storm we ever got after the storm.
Right.
They went and did Zuko's kind of story of just being on his own and having kind of a Western kind of feel to it, but heavily focused on flashbacks regarding his family, in the Fire Nation. They make the Lannisters look kind of nice. like they give the Lannisters a run for their money. There's some messed up things going on in there, and it informs a huge amount of motivations for not only Zuko, but Iroh, Azula. Even in some ways, the mother and father, even though the mother has a lot of mystery surrounding some of her specific things.
But also, huge shout out to this. This is another one of an episodic episode that is in Airbender. Essentially, it's filler.
Yeah.
Like think about that for a
second. It doesn't move the grand plot forward.
Nope. But the way they handle Zuko's character and even the other characters through the flashbacks in this episode is so freaking amazing.
It's fantastic. And if you'll notice, the next episode is kind of a nice extension of the Zuko character depth bit. But this one is actually more of character development. This episode is called Bitter Work.
Yep.
Bitter Work is probably one of the episodes that I would say, from a general fan perspective, it has the least critical merit to be on this list. Just of all the ones that we have on this 10. But the reason why Bitter Work needs to be on this list is every single moment with Iroh in particular in this episode
are just amazing.
Is perfect.
Yeah.
There are things dropped in this episode, Bitter Work, with regards to Iroh in particular that are like life-changing wisdom nuggets. Like, so good. And then they do another parallel bit between Aang and Zuko growing.
Just keeping it going.
It's
so good. And here's the other thing. Okay, if you think about it, this episode is a training episode. Mm-hmm. They do it all in, just this one episode. Yep. And they tie it completely into the characters. Yep. The inner motivations and who these people are. Right. Or the people that are getting stronger. It's not just training for the sake of developing techniques, right?
Yep, totally.
And even as much crap as Zuko sometimes get for being really angsty and stuff, that part where he goes up onto the mountain and is shouting up at the storm,
right?
Oh boy.
Yeah, in particular, Aang and Toph's dynamic has a lot of humor. Sokka brings in a lot of humor. There's a lot of cool moments where you see how different earthbending is comparatively to every other bending technique.
Which is another thing that's great for world building.
Yeah, and it also shows Aang actually struggling for one of the first times, I would say, in the story. In general, he was getting a lot of his problems solved relatively easy, in a relatively easy manner. But this one goes into some of the struggle on the mechanical side of things. And it made sense a lot in the world building. So just a fantastic episode. This one's an episode in particular that before we were even really through the list much at all, I was like, Jacob, we got to have City of Walls and Secrets on here.
And I was I had a feeling you were going to mention that one.
Yep. This episode shows really Avatar is not a kid's show.
Yeah, the fact that they came up with this, that's oh my gosh, this is one of those things where they were not at all resting on their laurels of okay, we've got this great show that people love and it's on Nickelodeon and all that stuff. They did not rest easy. The fact that they came up with this is awesome. That's something I would expect from some crazy intrigue show, like Game of Thrones or something.
So to not be as specific as possible, City of Walls and Secrets delves into a lot of political things that are not the kind of political things you'd expect. It goes into the political workings of a nation that is basically isolated itself from the outside world, even though they really can't do it
perfect
practically.
Like been shown previously.
And it shows what would need to happen in order to manipulate a populace through essentially fear and kind of forced ignorance, kind of censoring, if you would.
Yeah.
It's
fear and a little bit of extra
layers.
Sprinkles.
There's a lot of layers to it.
Yeah.
And that alone makes the episode great. Yeah. But then they have all these fantastic arc moments, these converging of plot lines, characters that we hadn't seen for a while brought back, utilizing their motivations to further other characters' things. Oh my gosh. Just an easy 9.5 to 10 out of 10 episode, just in terms of a somewhat, I would say, kind of benchmark episode for the entire remaining rest of season 2. Yep. Excellent stuff.
Now, the next one we have to mention, since we're getting to the end of season 2.
You might sense a pattern here, but it's the part 2 finale of book 2, Crossroads of Destiny.
Yeah. Surprise! All the finales of Airbender are amazing.
Yes, they're fantastic. And some people have gone on record saying that this is what people mean when they say the Empire Strikes Back of fill in the blank.
Yeah.
This episode unashamedly borrowed from the themes, and I would say part 1 even more so of the finale borrows from the Empire Strikes Back side of things, but this capitulates.
This is where it really comes to a head.
Yes, all the build-up from book 1 and book 2 in a spectacular finale that doesn't end well for the good guys. It ends badly.
And they took some risks here.
Especially
with say Zuko's character and stuff.
Yes.
That's one of those things where, oh my gosh, I'm sure they did get a lot of crap for that.
They did, actually. One of the things in particular, guys, that they did, and this is a bit of a spoiler, but Zuko turns back to the bad guy's side, essentially.
And it's one of those things where, like, so many people got upset. I'm
really
sure,
upset.
You know, and it's like, I understand where they're coming from because, you know, he's had this amazing arc, you know, going this whole way, and then he decides to throw it all away. And it's one of those things where you're like, how could you be so stupid? But at the same time, you're like, oh, no, of course you have to do that.
Yeah, of course he has to do that.
You have to see what that actually is. That grass is greener on the other side. You need to see that it's not actually all that great, and that's not who you are. And
Toph has epic moments in this episode. Aang, Katara, Zuko, and Azula have a 2v2 showdown of bending for the ages. There's almost never any bending fight like it in the show after this, because the rest are all really impactful 1v1s. But this is a 2v2 fight with other people in addition that come in later. There is a huge amount of character development, in particular for Aang here. There's a lot of good conversations, once again, with Iroh, who's also a big part of this episode. There's a lot of sacrifice that happens on the part of the protagonists. There's a fantastic showdown between two antagonists that had been playing political games with each other, and you find out who's really good at playing that game, and it's something else. In particular, this is probably the best, I would say, book of Avatar, but this finale is arguably one of, if not the greatest episode of Avatar. In terms of just having everything. There are episodes we like more, in particular on a subjective level, but if you looked at it in like a critical way, it's fantastic. So we had to have it in there. This next one, we're jumping pretty far ahead. This is also a part 2 one, but it's for the Day of Black Sun.
Big surprise there, right?
Yes. This episode was kind of the mid-season finale for Book 3. And if you were paying attention in Book 2, you knew that this was also not going to end well. But, like, look at the ones we mentioned. So many times the heroes fail at the big moments where it matters. And in this one, while many of the heroes fail, one person becomes a hero.
One person, the most amazing, like, just chills down the spine, satisfying scenes ever.
If you want to look up, like, greatest monologue for a protagonist ever, like, this one is in that list.
It's, oh man.
Now, you know, you're in here, spoilers are going to be a thing, but yeah, guys, Zuko's talk to his father is something that takes this episode from being an intense action thriller episode to being a character episode where, after over 50 episodes of development, Zuko finally decides to rid himself from his past, leave the Fire Nation, go to help the Avatar, and in the most intense moment, his father, Ozai, leverages the thing he knows Zuko wants the most to keep him around for just a few more minutes.
And you're like, no.
You're like, no, Zuko, please, don't get out of there. And then they call back to one of the episodes we have on the list, Bitter Work. He utilizes the redirecting of lightning, and it just feels so sweet.
It's like the ultimate, like, basically middle finger to Ozai of, like, you don't control me.
Yeah, you don't have anything over me anymore. Whatever you can send my way, I'll dish it back harder to
and
you.
in fact, I probably could have killed you.
Could have killed you. Yeah. It's one of the moments that makes Ozai feel terrifying as a villain, because his presence is very much shadowy Emperor Palpatine.
Mark Hamill does a great job.
Yes, Mark Hamill's voice acting is fantastic. But the antagonists get a huge props in this episode, particularly with Azula's craftiness and laying the trap, and also utilizing Dai Li agents in a moment where firebending is non-existent. So it's just
it's like great callback to a previous season in what could have been a self-contained arc that's like never mentioned again. It's like, no, we're Avatar, we don't do that.
Yeah. Also, as you know, in the part 1 episode of this Day of Black Sun sequence, they utilized a whole bunch of side characters quite well. And also, when they lost, they ended up splitting the group again, having some people sacrifice themselves for the greater good. and bringing in actually some new characters into the mini group dynamic,
right?
And really setting the pace for the second half of book 3, which, while good, is like actually one of the more odd, uneven kind of segments of Avatar as a whole, which is saying like, whereas the average episode is like an 8.5 out of 10,
this is like an 8.2.
8.2, you know. Yeah. But we got to wrap this up here. The final 10th one here.
You might be a bit surprised by this one,
or you might not if you're if you're this type of Avatar fan. The Ember Island players. Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Okay, and when you think like, okay, but Avatar, like pearls of episodes, like why is this one here? This is
just genius.
This is like a love letter to the fans, basically, in the best possible way. Like,
because the show is ending with the finale coming later, like directly after this.
And it's so sad and everything.
And yet they are going to, in the most self-aware manner, parody themselves and rip off themselves, almost predicting what would happen with the M. Night Shyamalan film. Having some of them, exactly. Having some of the most genius comedy that the series has ever done put into this play of them. It's top. It's so good. If we are ever like in a like downer mood and we want to just have a pick ourselves up kind of thing, we'll watch this episode.
The star's not on the wrong side.
There's even actually some really good character depth moments between like a conversation between Toph and Zuko,
or Katara
and Aang.
Yep.
And those kind of little things just show that Avatar is a multi-dimensional show and doesn't need to conform to specific episode formula. It can do whatever it wants in any type of episode. So it's just really good show. Yep. Now, for our honorable mentions, we're just going to list these off really quickly. We have The Cave of Two Lovers, romance and comedy. Just
Secret Tunnels.
Secret Tunnels, yep. Next one, we have The Blind Bandit.
Awesome
Toph,
character introduction.
Enough
Toph,
said.
Like, come on.
Lake Laogai.
Culmination for the whole Ba Sing Se, deal with the guy.
Everything that started with with City of Walls and Secrets basically kind of ended with Lake Laogai
and it was just
in
great.
some really powerful ways.
And they actually had someone die.
Yeah. Next one is The Beach.
Because how could we not mention The Beach?
Yeah, this is like the stereotypical anime episode where they all get the characters into some more risque outfits, for the purpose of fan service.
If Zuko alone was like the great character-driven filler episode, this is the filler episode that also had some great character moments in there, but also was just so much fun to watch.
So much fun comedy and stuff. It was amazing. And then the other one we left on our honorable mentions list is one that was so hard to not have in the top 10, is the Avatar and the Fire Lord.
Yeah.
It's the Roku and Sozin backstory. It again parallels Aang and Zuko so perfectly well and has one of the biggest plot reveal kind of setting twists the show has. And also an insanely good conversation between Iroh and Zuko.
Yes.
Just proper episode. And guys,
We're
that's
cheat.
it. But no, we cheated. You're right. Yep, we cheated. Sorry, guys. You might have noticed that there was a specific sequence of 4 episodes that weren't on this list. That's because screw the rules.
Exactly.
Sozin's Comet, part 1 through 4, the finale of the entire series. It's so
good.
This
is how you do a finale. This is how you wrap up a story and end it perfectly.
Yeah, if you go out there and you think like, all right, what are some of the greatest like series finales in existence that just put a bow on a perfect show? Avatar has most everything beat.
Yeah, like you can't forget this one. It's just
it's a 90-minute movie essentially.
Yeah.
You have episodes that focus primarily on kind of the group kind of figuring out what the goal is and going into some deep philosophical questions about whether it's okay to kill someone even though they're horrible. And should you seek out every other alternative before doing that? Going into the capitulation of Zuko's arc with Iroh, which is just tear-bending inducement to the max. You have the callbacks of bringing back many characters throughout the previous books and to have their relevance brought in the final bit. You have the final fights, which are just incredible.
Like, visually, they're also amazing. Like, they totally stepped things up for this, but...
They brought in, like, legit 3D into the Zeppelin showdown bit, which shows, like, whoa, they dumped the budget of whatever they had left into this finale.
And Aang versus the Fire Lord with the pillars and everything like that. Like, and the thing is, it wasn't just that the fights were visually amazing and all that stuff, but they meant so much.
They meant so much. This is what the whole series had been building up to. The music in particular, and like the Zuko and Azula fight, goes into the most heart-rending emotions, and yet you really want Azula to go down. You're really rooting for Zuko here.
Azula's whole thing of unwinding.
Yes, her descent into madness, her final collapse.
It was so poetic.
So perfect.
And like, I couldn't watch that final bit
without like choking up a little bit.
No, like sometimes I would actually pull a guitar and look away because I was like, that is
disturbing.
And
in particular, the show basically is kind of reminding you that you've been on a journey, and we understand that you've grown with us through this journey. So we're not going to hold back any punches.
Right.
In particular, the mythos of the show is dealt strongly here with Aang's solo journey that happens. Also, as far as pacing risks goes, having your protagonist go off solo in the finale is very risky.
Yes.
And it pulled it off very well, despite it being very close to a Deus Ex Machina in a lot of ways. It was done very well. I also liked the callback to even minor characters like June. That was
makes the world feel more real.
Yes, it does. The dialogue in this episode is top tier. Everyone seems to know how to write these characters just well in their final grand moments before the story ends.
You get to see the old folks being badass.
Yeah, we get to have the capitulation of Katara and Aang's relationship. And then the show ends, and you realize, like, I'm not going to be able to watch this for the first time ever again. And it's absolutely heartbreaking because you realize you watched a masterpiece that somehow was on Nickelodeon.
Like, how does that even happen?
Yeah, and guys, we wanted to do this podcast essentially for a long time. But if you guys are like we'll tell the people that, you know, wanted to skip spoilers to go to this part in particular. It's like 32:30, Jacob. Watch Avatar: The Last Airbender. Start from the beginning. Don't quit. Go all the way through. It's 61 episodes. It's a show that really changed the way a lot of, I would say, just classic animation on the fantasy side of things is done. Because this show wasn't lazy. And that's like a very simple way of putting it. It took care to make sure every single detail was handled well. And there are weaker moments in Avatar. But a weaker moment in Avatar is like an average or above average, you know, thing in another show.
Another show,
So we're done hyping it up enough. Go watch it.
There's a reason we've seen it, you know, over
like
a dozen
15
times
or something.
Because
it's that good. All right, guys. Well, we're going to get into some of your questions now.
Yes.
First question is coming from Charles Coco. What is the limit of violence in an anime you can handle? I don't know, but I'm a very queasy person. I would say you're a little bit more chill with violence than I am.
The main thing is I'm wondering, why is the violence in here?
Yes.
Right? For something like Berserk, totally okay with violence, right?
Okay.
Because, of course, I'd be kind of like confused if it wasn't.
Right. It's all about the presentation and not necessarily like there's some levels of violence we're not okay with.
But if it feels fan servicey, like...
Yeah. Is there a point where you start getting angry towards the author of the story? Is your anger always focused on a certain character in the show? Well, there's never any always situation. It's generally a thing where we, if we can't see the reason as to why the violence is in there, we might get frustrated with the creator of the show.
Right.
But in particular, I would say the closest we've ever come to that kind of thing where it was both was Made in Abyss in particular. But we understood why the violence needed to be there, especially after we had gotten through episode 10.
But like we were still like, I'm not sure if we're okay with this.
Yeah, it still didn't make it a thing where we really enjoyed it, you know? Yeah. Anyway, Keeper B.
Have you guys read the Percy Jackson series or other Rick Riordan series? No. And it's unfortunate because I know that series is very popular.
Yeah.
Just haven't
done it yet. Lex the Graceful Rival asks, do you two have an episode limit for anime that you consider reacting to? It's a bit nebulous.
Yeah.
But I would say the main thing is we try to keep it so that we're doing like 2 cours to like 4 cour, you know,
right,
like that kind of average, you know.
Right now we have a lot of longer shows, so that's why we're doing like 1 and 2 cour shows mostly.
But we don't really have a limit. It's more of a thing of if we have someone recommend to us a show that's like 300 episodes, for instance, and that's above our limit, so to speak, we have a specific circle of close friends that will go, hey, is it worth watching every single one of these episodes?
Right, because that's something we'd be watching for 6 years.
You know? Yeah. And they most of the time go no.
Right.
So, yeah, that's the gist of it. What do you think is the correct pace to develop your characters at? There is no correct pace.
Like it depends on, you know, what
the
story
on the setting of the story.
Yeah, like how long the story is. Madoka Magica is 12 episodes.
Yeah.
If they tried to use like a 200 episode show's pace for developing their characters, kind of wouldn't really work. But
it works well with the follow-up part that they have here. It says, I've watched many anime where some characters were fully developed midway through the series and the author just didn't develop them any further. Or situations where the main characters get character development in the beginning of the story and the end, but nearly none in between.
Yeah.
I would say the main problem, you're right about this, is the main problem is that people figure that character depth moments are character development. Character development is a gradual process. You don't dump character development into a localized moment and then just suddenly have them be like no different or just a static thing after that.
Yeah, because here's the thing. It should be happening all the time.
All the time.
And and it's a lot easier to do that in shorter shows because you just do that for, you know, say 12 episodes and then you're done, right?
Yep.
But with the longer shows it can be a lot more like noticeable because if you have say 25 episodes or whatever that are all in like a bunch of fights or something like that.
Right.
And, you know, that can make it feel like
right.
they're not as realistic of a person because people change, have an ebb and flow and stuff, you know, all the time.
I think one of the other things you can do is as long as that character is in the focus, they should have some kind of motivation that will encourage development. Even if it's not literally shown every single episode, it's still okay because every time they're in the story, development of that character is a focus.
Right. They don't even need to change, even if it's just something where like they're getting like opportunities to dig deeper into who they are.
Totally. Yep. Follow-up question is also, other than My Hero Academia Season 3, are there any other anime that you're going straight away to react when they come out? And parentheses, Steins Gate Zero is coming out this season, I'm just saying. Steins Gate Zero is not going to be one of the ones that we react to immediately. The only other one is going to be Attack on Titan Season 3.
Yeah.
Yeah. But good questions.
Yes.
Little Duck! I love your questions, Little Duck. Thank you so much. Do you guys have any pets? No. We used to have a cat. And this cat was a wonderful cat. She was my grouchy cat, and I loved her grouchiness. And she has died since then, like a long time ago, like 5 or 6 years ago. Yeah. But if so, can you please make a video with them? If we do end up getting pets or a pet, we will totally make a video with them. I was like, if not, will you get one? We'll see.
Yeah,
we'll see. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Arthur
HP. Which character outside of anime/manga or comics like DC or Marvel do you guys think would be a good licensed hunter, and what kind of nen would they have? Ooh.
Yeah.
Ooh,
example.
Okay.
I think Solid Snake would make a great hunter.
Oh, okay. Cool. A Solid Snake with he'd be a conjurer with the ability to materialize landmines or shooting. Oh, okay. I have to think about that because when I think about a good licensed hunter, I think about someone who's like already accomplished in their skills in particular. Like who is it?
Sherlock Holmes.
Oh, nice.
I think Sherlock Holmes would not only make a great hunter, like as far as his effectiveness goes, because he's really smart and things like that, and he'd be really good at figuring out what other people's like nen specialization was and stuff, probably. But also, I think especially if it's like BBC Sherlock or something, that would be so entertaining.
That would be very entertaining. So he would be what, like
Maybe not a specialist.
Maybe a specialist?
Maybe, I don't know. Or maybe he'd be like a manipulator or a conjurer.
I could see him being a manipulator where he basically controls something about objects and basically reads their past. So he would use his Nen to interact with an object out there or a person or whatever.
Objects just start speaking to him and
they just start giving him information. That would be pretty cool. I would concur. Sherlock would be a really great one. I think most of the characters that I'm thinking of tend away from the kind of the superpower kind of thing, so it's kind of tough to figure out what their Hatsu and all that would be. But I'm going to go with Sherlock Holmes too. Sorry, I don't really have a great answer for that. Wackashit asks, will you guys ever start reading manga and possibly review some in the future? We'll see. Yeah. Maybe. Since you mentioned the Haikyuu discussion that you would love to... sorry.
The reason I'm asking
is because
Berserk is an incomplete experience without the manga, and there's so many great stories you're missing out on.
If there's any manga that I get into at some point, it would be Berserk, because I've heard it's the greatest manga of all time, because I've also heard that the continuing anime works that have been done are just utter garbage, other than maybe like a movie or something.
Well, specifically the 2016 and 17 versions, you just don't need to see.
Okay, cool. So and we'll see.
Yeah, when. I've been holding off on reading Berserk because I'm just hoping all right, let's get more chapters out there.
Gotcha.
And then
all right. So now it's question for Caleb. Have you recommended to people around you about Haikyuu? Yes, I have. I, in fact, just recommended Haikyuu to someone about 5 days ago. Since you mentioned on Haikyuu discussion that you would love to recommend it. Also, which character of Haikyuu resembles you and Jacob the most?
Oh, boy.
Well, I am probably Sugawara. That's probably the easiest character for me to say, that's probably me. I would say in the quirky aspects of it, I'm actually a lot like Liev in a weird way.
Oh, yeah?
I'm just kind of goofy, a little bit awkward and kind of tall, and I make weird looks sometimes without trying to be creepy. And then I really love cats and sports and stuff. So
I don't know.
If I had to give you, if I did just give you one, you're gonna
oh boy,
you're gonna kind of laugh, but I would say in a lot of ways you're kind of a Daichi. So here's where you could kind of be a Daichi but also not. Like you're the kind of person who would kind of have that intensity about going after something and casting a vision. But also, if you were a leader of a group of people, you would be the quiet leader. You would not be you would not be a Tanaka. You would not be a Suga or an Asahi. Like Asahi is quiet in the unconfident, big kind of teddy bear kind of way, and I think you have parts of that. But I think if I had to choose one that resembles personality-wise, it would be Daichi.
Cool.
But that's why we're bros, because I'm the Suga, you Daichi.
There we go.
But in terms of looks, I don't know. I don't know who would fit the looks kind of thing the most.
Yeah, I don't know.
We'll see, I guess. Next question is from Error Anonymo. According to you, what is the best way to create a moral dilemma between the protagonist and the antagonist?
And they're specifically saying, I'm tired of stories that introduce to me a character that is completely despicable and then tells me that they're not really a bad guy. It's probably appearing in his own writing. Thank you, because I agree. Yeah. I really don't like it when that happens. It kind of ruins rewatchability for me, because then I'm like, I know that they're basically lying to me here, right? And they can do that just because perspective changes, but sometimes it gets a bit too extreme. So I would say think about the story with rewatchability in mind. Or readability or whatever. Yeah,
I don't really have any specific examples. Since you're talking about the way to best create a moral dilemma, I would say make the characters' motivations more transparent, and then show where they would naturally have conflict with each other, and focus on that. And don't subvert that for the sake of shock value. Like really delve deep into that.
Yeah. Come up with like a topic, like a main sort of moral dilemma that you want there to be like the subject or the theme throughout, and then you can be like, okay, since that's what I'm kind of wanting it to go for,
like your crux,
your
fulcrum,
exactly.
so to speak.
Yep.
Yeah.
Then you can kind of be like, okay, let's not shape the characters around that, but say that's what I want to have
shaped like the conversation around.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I want brought to the forefront.
Right. Deep Shika Mardi asks, have you guys ever cosplayed? And if you haven't, which anime character would you cosplay? Well, we both have not cosplayed, as far as I know. Okay. I know that you have a very obvious answer in mind.
I have a 3-tiered list of like cosplays that I want to do. The basic one is Rock from Black Lagoon because that's super simple, and you know I could totally do that. The next one that I want to do is Kamina because that would just be awesome. And who doesn't want to cosplay Kamina?
Seriously.
And then the next one, which would be so awesome, would be Broskandar from Fate Zero.
Yeah, I have almost no desire to cosplay. Like I know it's like horrible to say, but I'm kind of scared of costumes. But if I wanted to do just a nice, fun, simple cosplay, I would do a Haikyuu character because I would just get the jersey. I would get, my little setup, my wig and whatever, and I would be like volleyball in one hand and ultimate frisbee in the other.
So which one would you do from the
I don't really care. It'll be one of them. Who knows? Next question is from Emmy Cades. Is there any way to write a harem well? Or if not, maybe to cleverly subvert the trope, and what would that look like?
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. So, okay. The reason I would say that harems a lot of the time have a bad rep is because they're written to be harems, right?
Right.
But if you think about it, sometimes like I'll be watching a show and I'll be like, a lot of the female characters seem to all really like the main male character. And the thing is, that's not something that's just anime that does that.
Right.
A lot of stories do that.
Yeah.
But the reason why it's called a harem in my mind is because it won't really make sense.
Right.
It'll just be sort of assumed that all the girls in the world will like the main character, right?
Right.
It's
a self-insert thing so that you can feel more validated.
When I watched, there was a certain show that I watched that was, a romantic comedy type show. I'm not going to say which one, so no spoilers. But there was a point where I was really liking it, and then I got to the end of it, and I'm like, wait a minute, all the main female characters ended up liking the main character, and I was like, does it make this a harem? And I was like, no,
because it
doesn't, because it made sense for each of the characters. It made sense for why they liked the main character.
Yep.
So.
Yeah. I would say Jacob's mostly right in this. I have no real specific things to add, particularly about how to write it. Subverting the trope in particular, I would love to see more dynamics with this done in such a way to where the relationship dynamics within the harem, so to speak, don't last.
Sure. And
there are some consequences because of the main character not treating his or her harem correctly or right. And then therefore the relationships after that are like maybe the main character ending up all alone because of that. That would be a cool subversion of the trope.
You could even do something where you basically say, okay, there are all these girls that like the main character, all these guys that like, the main girl, right? And then you make it so that because in harems usually there's nothing that really happens from the relationships, right? Because there aren't really any relationships.
Yeah.
It's just a bunch of unrequited, crushes. What you could do is you could make it so that each character that likes them basically is a way to sort of have a different lesson about relationships be conveyed, where they come to learn about like, oh, I'm fawning over this person too much when we don't really even know each other or talk to each other, or
there's
something
some cool
like
things
that.
You could get into with that. Next question's from Sen Ojino. Jacob, which works were your biggest influences that helped shape your book? Oh, Sen Ogino. My bad.
The biggest influence that helped shape your book. Lord of the Rings. Loved it. That was one of the things that really got me into reading and stuff.
Some anime.
Yes, a lot of anime. Also, the Christopher Paolini Inheritance series, started with the Aragon book. That was really big for me because I always thought of writing as being something that was unattainable. I would still write my AU Star Wars stuff and all those sorts of things.
Same here.
Oh yeah. But I never considered it as something that I could seriously do, because whenever I heard about authors, it was all like the Tolkien and old people and stuff.
Yeah.
But then it's like, oh no, here's this person who started writing his first book when he was 15.
Yep.
Finished it when he was 19, and a really crappy movie got made out of it. Like,
yeah,
cool,
pretty cool. Next question is, you guys have any book recommendations besides Red Rising? Already read that one because you mentioned it so frequently. LOL.
Good job.
Just finished the Mistborn series because of your previous unboxing video. Cool. I love fantasy, so if you have any epic ones that you really liked, please tell me.
Well, there's the obvious one.
Yeah, there's the Song of Ice and Fire. If you haven't read those, they're really good.
What Game of Thrones came from, so
those are fantastic.
Yep.
What's the? Oh, go for it.
Kingkiller Chronicles. It's unfinished, but it's by Patrick Rothfuss. There's 2 books. They're big, so you can really sink your teeth into them. Unfinished, unfortunately. Hopefully, the 3rd book will come out in the next 10 years. But good stuff.
There's a book series that I've dabbled in. It's just really large, so I don't think I have the name of it in my head, but I'll put it in like a pinned comment for the video for you. Third final question: if you could travel anywhere, where would you like to go? Ooh, a lot of places
within this universe.
Yeah. In particular, I really want to travel to meet specific people. So I'm kind of boring right now. I want to go to a lot of places just in the U.S. Like, I haven't had a lot of time to travel in other sections of just times of my life. I would love to go to some places to visit locations, but that seems a little bit like, I don't know, kind of shallow. Like, I would love to go to places like Greece and see like ancient like buildings like the Parthenon and stuff. I'd love to go to India or Japan or, I don't know,
Rome or
Ireland and see castles and stuff, and that kind of stuff. Oh yeah, Rome. Those places are great. But there's a lot of, like, where would I like to travel that I think about? Like, well, I'd love to just go back to some places in Texas and go to New York and meet some of my friends that I haven't seen in like 6 or 7 years. So
I would want to travel to Los Angeles and meet the Critical Role people.
Yes.
The dream would be to travel to Los Angeles for the express reason of like being on an episode.
Guys,
like something like that.
At some point in Jacob's future, we need to make it work where he gets brought on as a guest.
Like that would be
Critical
awesome.
Role episode. Come on, guys, we can make this dream happen.
That would be
at some point. Yeah. All right. Next question is from Guanier Jacques.
Yeah.
How did it feel to see your Attack on Titan reactions do so well on your channel? Well, it was kind of surprising.
Yeah.
In particular, those videos of the ones that like went really big, kind of shocked us. We didn't think that would be a thing,
especially since like this was a while ago.
So
like we didn't even have a Patreon at that point. Like,
and we didn't really edit our videos in proper software either.
Yeah.
So it is a little bit surprising. But yeah, that's awesome. We can't wait for season 3.
Yes. It's going to be so good.
Brandon T asks, having seen a good portion of Hunter x Hunter, do you think the predictable and more generic earlier episodes could have been done better, or were they necessary to set up what was to come? Can I say yes on both of those? Because I think that, of course, they could have been done better.
Right. Like there's never a perfect story.
Right. But I think if I had to choose, like, specific things about them that could have been done better, it's more of a pacing thing rather than actually, like, adding in specific things.
Right.
It's more of that the Hunter x Hunter earlier episodes, you could tell, had basically material that they were trying to adapt, but they stretched the material out a bit too thin at certain parts. That's all.
Okay.
I would say there were no fundamental flaws.
Right.
With it.
Like when I think about it, the main thing that I think of is that this is the guy who did Yu Yu Hakusho. So he's coming off of that, and so he doesn't. He's like, all right, I've got a big audience. They'll be interested in this in and of itself, and I'm wanting this to be a longer story, so I don't need it to be super, like, intense right out the gate, and I probably don't want it to be because I want to build up that this is just sort of like this fun adventure and all that stuff, so that when all the crazy stuff happens later, it's a hard contrast.
Yeah, totally. If it's the latter, would that mean that the notion of hooking your reader with the first sentence of your book isn't as important in anime or TV shows?
I would say it's still super important.
It's really important.
And the main reason why it wasn't as much of a big deal for Hunter x Hunter is because he already did Yu Yu Hakusho. So, people are willing to, like, wait a bit longer.
I would be curious to go back to the original airing time of Hunter x Hunter and see what kind of buzz there was around the show. I'll bet you it was a tiny fraction of what there is around Hunter x Hunter right now.
Yeah. Yep.
In particularly because you can tell that the way he wrote Hunter x Hunter was discovery based.
Yes.
And that lends itself to a very different type of journey than most TV shows and just stories in general. Right. Varley asks, what show have you watched or reacted to that has completely exceeded your expectations the most? Oh, shoot. Well, okay, here's the thing, Jacob.
It's down to 2, really.
I think it is down to 2, but it's not the 2 that you're thinking of for me. Yeah. Because here's the thing. There are shows that I had no expectations of.
Well, okay, yeah. And if you go to where you had, like, super low expectations and then... Okay, yeah.
Mm-hmm. What are yours? What are your 2? And I'll say my 2.
Well, I'm more... okay, this isn't for, like, the lowest to the highest. This is more of just, like, the highest and not believing that there could be a show that good.
Oh, yeah. I mean, yours is going to be JoJo's, right?
No.
Whoa. Haikyuu?
Haikyuu and My Hero Academia.
Oh,
okay. Like that...
Yeah. So mine are Psycho-Pass in My Hero Academia.
Oh, yeah.
So Psycho-Pass...
That's right, because we were all like... A cop drama.
Psycho-Pass really blew me away. I would say that Psycho-Pass in particular was something I did not expect great things out of.
Right. It was one of those things where we were like, should we do this? They're saying it's a cop drama, but they're saying like that we should just trust them and watch it because it's actually really good.
And then My Hero Academia for the same reason you have, but also because in particular I was really burned out on shonen in
That's
general.
Right. So you were really not looking forward to getting into another shonen, but you're like, okay.
I had been told by enough people that MHA was worth it. Right. And I'm like, all right, I can do this. I can. And boy, was I wrong that there was anything to worry about.
Yeah.
I'm glad you mentioned Haikyuu though, because it's hard to not put Haikyuu up on the list for
it's
me.
Like,
or JoJo's, because
it's like, okay, a sports anime, but I'm not really into sports, and I'm certainly not into volleyball.
Right.
All right.
That's why I would say Haikyuu didn't go on the list for me, because I like sports, so sure. I understand the team dynamic thing way more, and I'm like, oh yeah, that sounds something like, even if I don't like the plot so much, I could probably get into that stuff. But of course, it was then fantastic. But I would say if I had to choose one, it was probably like pretty evenly split. Like I probably couldn't choose one or the other. In some ways, I kind of could say Psycho-Pass because Psycho-Pass is over for us. MHA is not.
That's true.
And I don't know, MHA in some weird universe could probably go into the dumpster at some point if it, went for 700 episodes or something. But Psycho-Pass in particular ended, for us. Mm-hmm. And it was really good. It was really good. So
I'd probably, if I had to choose, I'd probably say MHA.
Yeah.
Just because every time I would think like, oh man, wouldn't that be so like, what if they did this? That would be so amazing. And then it's like they did that, or they did something even better.
Yeah.
And it was just like, yeah.
All right, guys. Well, this was a lot of fun. This is probably one of our longer podcasts we've done in a while. Sorry for that, but there's a lot of good questions in there. Yes. We had a lot of fun talking about what we really loved about Avatar: The Last Airbenders, favorite episodes and stuff. And yeah, we'll see you guys in the next one. But if you want to get your comments or questions answered in the next podcast, leave them in the comments below.
Right.
Put them in there, and we'll see about getting them in there. If you notice that your comment didn't get answered here, it's either because it's probably already been answered, or it's a question that we just had to cut down the numbers
to keep it a reasonable time.
Right. Yeah. And even though this one went way too long.
Exactly.
So just put the question in again. Sorry we missed your question, and we'll see you in the next one.
Yes.
Yeah. But until then, we're Semblance of Sanity. I'm Caleb.
I'm Jacob.
And we'll see you all next time.